Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Traina. Thanks for listening. Post-Super Bowl Fallout Week, we've got Andrew Marchand. We get into way more than the Super Bowl with Andrew from the New York Post. And obviously, he has his own sports media podcast. Get into the Al Michaels situation. Is Troy Aikman leaving Fox? Sean McVay, is he going to go into broadcasting? Manning cast copycats. Chris Russo and Stephen A. Smith on First Take. And obviously, thoughts on the Super Bowl telecast, all that with Marchand, followed by the Traina Thoughts segment with Sal Licata, where we get into some of the stuff about the Super Bowl halftime show. And we had a big discussion about Stone Cold Steve Austin possibly coming back to the WWE. So check that out. Before we get to Marchand and Traina Thoughts, reminder, last week, Boomer Esiason was on the pod. 2 weeks ago, Brian Curtis. 3 weeks ago, Roman Reigns, Joe Buck, Jim Nance. Those pods, all in the archives. If you haven't listened to any of those, check them out. Subscribe, rate, and review. Try to, if you can review, it really helps a lot. Appreciate that. And that's it for the plugs. Let's get to the pod. Andrew Marchand from the New York Post, followed by Traina Thoughts with Sal Licata right here on this week's SI Media Podcast. All right, joining me now, SI Media Podcast regular writer for the New York Post, host of the Marchand and Oran podcast. He is Andrew Marchand. Andrew, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. Did you enjoy the Super Bowl?
I did. I was out in LA for a week before, so that was good. And then the game, not a great game, but I think you give it out of a 10, you probably give it a good 7 or 8. Maybe
a 7. Why were you in LA for a week? Just to hobnob and find out where Al Michaels is going to go? Is that why?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's a good, for me, covering baseball, I kind of treat it like it's the winter meetings. So it's actually more fruitful than the winter meetings. My baseball writer friends listening, you just kind of sit around and wait for Joel Sherman, Rosenthal, and Heyman to tweet everything out. No, you get some stuff when you're out at the winter meetings, but it's 8 trillion baseball writers waiting for Scott Boras to talk. It's fruitful for me. It lays the groundwork for the year in a lot of ways.
Were you at Radio Row?
I did go there. I went by there briefly a couple of days. I talked to some people.
How horrible was it?
How was it?
How horrible was it?
Oh, how horrible. I didn't think it was that horrible. I mean, I don't know. I talked to McAfee. I talked to Russo, so it was good for me. But
see, that's the thing. You go right to the big guys. You're not fooling around with Joe Theismann and Eric Dickerson like every sports talk radio show in the country.
Yeah, like I just kind of checked it out. But it wasn't kind of like the main reason to be out there. So, But yeah, it seemed all right. I think next year there's a chance we get back to more normalcy. It ticked up again. I forgot the exact numbers in terms of how many people were there, but it wasn't a zoo. Quite honestly, it's you don't want a pandemic,
right,
Russo
right.
voice there. But it was a little bit, sometimes those things are a little crowded. It's kind of gross, beforehand. So a little less people is not the worst thing.
You said you talked to McAfee. Do you have a McAfee feature coming?
No, I just introduced myself to him. I've been pretty kind to him, but on the air once, he had Erin Andrews on, and she said I don't like her, and then he said I didn't like him, so I just wanted to introduce myself because I've been pretty positive. I blew him up once about he was kind of campaigning for Monday Night a few years ago on Twitter, and then we DM'd, and it was all cool, and it might be cool. Yeah. It might not be anything, no big deal there, but I just like to introduce myself to people I cover as I try to, so I can know them if I'm covering them. It's important to me if I can. I think it's better. So that's what I did.
I've grown to like his show. I mean, I don't think anyone can have anything but massive respect for how he's built his media career empire, even before the 40 million from FanDuel or whatever it was, 400 million. But people focus on the Rodgers stuff, but he does good interview. Like his interview style, I like it, and I like his takes. I like the way he does the way he runs his show. I wrote one negative. I don't even think it was negative. I mean, I guess if you're him, you could see it as negative. But he had gone on the air one Monday and said like every NFL analyst. No. He went on the air and said like he can't believe how bad some NFL analysts are. And I'm like, if you're going to do that, you got to name some names, because he did it in a pretty broad way. So
that's fair. I think it's the energy. I think the energy brings. I think we talk about Russo all the time. And I think radio a lot of time has a lot to do with energy. It has to be sincere energy, right? Like Chris Russo is missing a screw, but it's a good screw to be missing for radio. McAfee, there's just an energy. It's his friends, which I always say when people make pairings. I mean, you can't just put somebody with their friends always, but you're just going to have a better conversation. We're going to have a better, we know each other. You know, we've never worked together, but now we've talked enough on, off the air. We have a rapport. It's going to be a better podcast because we kind of know, I know where you're going to go kind of, and know where I can kind of tease you. You can tease me, you know, that type of stuff. And so that's, I think, the main reason his stuff works real well is that energy that show has. Yeah,
for sure. You mentioned Russo. We're taping this a little bit after his first official episode of First Take with Stephen A. every Wednesday aired. I'm still coming off the high. I couldn't even believe how good it was.
It seemed like an obvious win when they did it the first time. You know, when you go way back when I guess Skip left, Stephen A. wanted Russo to be the full-time co-host. That was one of the people, at least on his list. I'm not saying that was his number one on his list. Adam Shine, I think, was another guy he had interest in. And it didn't happen, of course. But this seems like, and I don't know, 5 days a week, maybe it'd be great. Those two lunatics is going at it. It's an art form. It's not, who cares what they say, right? You were tweeting all the on the social. It's not what they say. It's just, you know, it's just, I mean, Doggy does, again, we grew up on, like literally we grew up 89. I don't know how old you are exactly, Jimmy, but 89, I mean, I'm 15 years old, or 87, I guess it started. So I'm 13 years old when Fan starts. And, you know, Chris and Mike kind of came in real quick. So you kind of grew up on them. So to hear the doggyisms, you know, he even, I don't know, what do you say? Life on the line.
Flat as a pancake.
But he even said life on the line to Stephen A. And like he brought up Kirk Cousins better than Dak Prescott. He was really
brought up Bob Tilley.
Exactly. So it's just he just has this, and he also has this thing of doing like, which is so enjoyable. He doesn't, like, in an argument, he'll just say names. Like he was doing, like they were doing the Dodgers and the Lakers, comparing who's more popular in LA. And he just said Vin Scully, Sandy Koufax. Like, what is that to do?
It has nothing to do with the argument.
Nothing. Oh God.
That was one of the clips I tweeted.
I saw that.
He said scenario 50. I mean,
scenario.
I said on Twitter recently that I'm going to start a Twitter account just dedicated to all the times he uses the word scenario, which never make any sense.
You got to go. You got to do a thing to the Tribe Called Quest song, and then bleed it in with him saying scenario. But he also says, because he also uses it in such a way that it's so good, because he'll use it, and this is what I love about Russo, the screw I'm talking about missing. He'll talk about like a Super Bowl scenario in terms of the end of the Super Bowl, but then he'll also say, all right, we'll have a doctor on in the COVID scenario. Right. It's like
the one that prompted my tweet where I said I wanted to create a Twitter account just dedicated to how he uses scenario was when he was telling his audience he wasn't going to be at Radio Row all 5 days. So he goes, so that'll be a plus for some of you who don't like the conveyor belt scenario. Like,
it's such a crutch, but it's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good. And also, you know, the thing about Chris, also, I do think he knows what he's doing. Like, he kind of is that idiot savant kind of thing going on, but he really does know what he's doing. He knows how to do a show, and also he loves it, but it is a job. Like, he treats it as like, I got to entertain you right now. I don't have anything to talk about. I got to entertain you right now. Now, do I think Chris and Stephen A, maybe, do they think they know more than maybe they do on some of these subjects? Like, do they think they're right? Skip Bayless, same thing. Does he think he's right on this stuff? I think a little too much for my liking. Like, they're not, like, the reason it's entertaining is not because I got to hear what they think about things. Right. It's how they say it and how crazy they are about these topics.
And to piggyback off of that, what I want people outside of New York, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with Chris Russo and you catch him on First Take or you put him on Sirius, but the people outside of New York don't understand this. And this is why I love him. You're 100% right in that he is doing a gig like that. He takes it seriously and all that. But here, zero of it, I'll say 99.9% of it is not an act.
Yeah.
That's how he is. If you see him off the air, I mean, I've talked to him off the air. That's exactly how he is. That is not the light goes on, I'm going to change my personality. Like that. He came to SI once to do my podcast, and then he bumped into the guy who was the managing editor at the time. And he's like, let me tell you about the magazine, what you need to do. And the cameras were not on, the mics were not on. So what I appreciate is the authenticity. Now, yes. I will also say, go ahead.
Yeah, let me say one other thing. I did a feature like maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 now, I don't know, a couple of years ago, where I spent the day with him. Started at 6:30 in the morning, spent the full day with him. And, when you're a talk show host, everybody wants to know your opinion about everything. Right. And most people, like not most, but a lot of people off the air don't really want to do that, right? They just don't want to spend the whole day. He is talking to the guy behind the counter when he's getting his coffee. He's talking to the guy at the restaurant. Everywhere we went, what do you think of this? And he has all these opinions about everything. And he's like doing he's basically doing the show. He's teasing. He's doing the whole show the whole day. That's who he is.
Yeah, like when I met him when he did he was like, what town in Long Island do you live in? Now, where do you take the Long Island Railroad from? What time do you take it? I'm like, this is amazing. And the other thing you said, which was dead on, after I posted a bunch of the clips, I had some people on Twitter saying like, he may end up with the full-time role, or he should have the full-time. That would not work 5 days a week. It would be once a week is actually perfection.
Yeah, probably right.
Perfection. All right. So that was good first take stuff there. Let's go to the Super Bowl. Well, before we even go to the Super Bowl, we'll go to the Super Bowl. 112.3 million. NBC has to be a static. 11 plus million of that streaming. We both did a thing for another website I think it's Programming Insider. I had guessed 100 million. You went 107. So I was an embarrassment of epic proportions. I shouldn't even be allowed to write about this, but what do you make of that big number?
Yeah, look, you shouldn't be embarrassed. Those things are just wild predictions that nobody has any idea about, really. So, and even how Nielsen formulates it, who knows if it's, what the deal is. I just thought personally it was going to be way up, and it was the highest, I think, in 5 years because we've seen an uptick in NFL watching. And we're not at wherever we are in this pandemic. I do think people are getting together more now. So I do think that kind of just builds on wanting to be a part of community. And the NFL is just king. I don't know. So if it was at 105 million or something, I said 107. Anything 100 plus is amazing. Right. And so even 90, whatever, we go 90 plus is amazing. So I just think the NFL is just such a great TV sport. A lot of people, especially our age, like the halftime show. And so it's just a cultural event, and I just think you get the bounce back, especially with fans. I think the real big thing that's kind of been lost is the fans being back in. Just kind of is such a difference maker than it was a year ago with no fans. It's just we've seen how important they are to the viewing experience. And also, if I go to a game and then I tell you, hey, Jamie, I went to this game, it's just you get more into it. So I think that's a big part of it.
The other thing I had completely forgotten about when I made that prediction was I forgot last year's game was so bad, 31-7 Bucks. I didn't realize that I had just completely forgotten it was so bad. So, and this was I didn't love the game, but it was close and competitive from start to finish. So that's, you're going to be hooked in there. So a couple of things off the gate, funny thing, obviously Al was a big storyline. He gave that line to Chris, the final slide in, and everyone expects him to go to Amazon. I just, without knowing anything, I still wouldn't completely shut the door on Monday Night Football if ESPN wants him. I think he would go. Al's going to go to ESPN over Amazon any day of the week, especially since they have a Super Bowl ABC at some point. You don't think so?
Well, look, I've been the one, I've reported that ESPN, I think ESPN's still in play, as far as I know. No, he's on the 1 yard line with Amazon. ESPN's still in play. As these podcasts live for a while. So by the time you're listening, some people who, might take a couple days before they get to it, things could change, but 1 yard line with Amazon, but he wants to know who the analyst is. Amazon, though, their big thing is they got Fred Gaudelli. He loves Gaudelli. He's been working with him for decades now. And at 77, who he works with, his producer being someone that he can trust, is very important to Al. And But you're right. So I don't think I don't think either one is perfect. Like ESPN would the schedule is about to get much better for Monday night. They're going to have more games, but I would still favor Amazon at this point. I think they'll most likely, if I were to say the most likely scenario, would be Aikman maybe splitting games between Amazon and Fox. If you say what happens with Aikman, that's not definite, but that's the most likely one, I would say.
Well, let me ask you this. So let's say ESPN is able to pull a Malcolm Butler, which I actually think I think legitimately could happen. And they get Al. Does Troy have to know who his play-by-play person is going to be before he signs with Amazon?
Al needs to know who his analyst is going to be before he signs with ESPN. Right. That's where the move is. So
let me ask you this.
He's not going to go, like, all due respect to, this is not me. This is what Al Michaels thinks. He's not going to go and go beat let me replace Levy and I'm going to be with Riddick and Greasy. That's not going to happen.
But let me ask you this. Could you envision any scenario at all, Chris Russo, where all the reports are saying Al and Troy to Amazon, Al and Troy to Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that's one move. If you're ESPN, go get both those guys. And then you got a pretty impressive Monday. Right. You got, you say Aikman's best analyst. I've seen you've written that. I think we both probably agree. Al's the best all time play-by-player, had a very good Super Bowl, 77 or not. That's the truth. And so you kind of solidify that at least for a few years, and Aikman's probably there long term. Right. Again, that's going to cost you a lot of money. That's the only thing you have to say. If you're ESPN, you got the Manning cast, you need to do that. And also Sean McVay's out there, who they're definitely interested in.
Well, that's where I wanted to go, because I find this to be so bizarre. The fact that a guy who's basically 12 years old and has been in the league for like 5 minutes wants to retire, I don't understand it on any level whatsoever. This to me just completely screams leverage money contract. I mean, is this a guy who's like yearning to be a broadcaster at his age?
So a couple of things. Number one, I think you're not considering enough the fact of how hard these guys grind for football coaches.
Give me a break.
What do you mean? Give me a break compared to being a broadcaster and doing one game a week, lifestyle wise?
Then don't do it. I mean, that's
what he's considering.
I mean, no, but I'm saying, like, what it is when you get, like, if he didn't win the Super Bowl, he'd keep doing it. So then the hard work wouldn't be a factor. But he won the Super Bowl, so now he doesn't want to do it. That to me means I won the Super Bowl. I
think the Super Bowl allows him. Look, ultimately, this story's not going to go away. If he doesn't go this year, I would think he's going to go to broadcasting in the next 3 years. Okay, this is a maybe this offseason, but a 3-year story. It's just that is so obvious to me that the idea that Sean McVay, from what I know and what he said, is going to be coaching the Rams in 5 years, I think is very, very. I'd be shocked.
Right, but he could be coaching the Cowboys in 5 years or the Patriots in 5 years.
Okay, so let's go. I always work these stories backwards, right? When you're trying to figure things out, all right? And then you look at, if I was working it backwards, does this make sense? So again, I'm not saying he's going to go, and you're right, this does give him leverage, and that very well could win the day at this point, where he gets a huge raise from the Rams, which he'll get regardless, and he'll stay on there. However, he's 36, he's getting married. He said publicly, which sometimes I put credence in, sometimes I don't, but he said publicly he's not going to do this till he's 60. It's very important for him to have a family and to be there, to have a work-life balance. He's done a podcast with Peter Schrager that's kind of unheard of as a coach, interviewing other coaches. So he has that media bug. This is another one that everyone kind of misses. I reported this. ESPN spoke to him 2 years ago about going to the Monday Night booth. There was interest. I mean, again, it didn't happen. That he ended up getting another deal with the Rams. Maybe it is leverage. It could be leverage, but you also need the other side. The ESPN and others would want Sean McVay. I had an executive tell me the other day, everybody would want this guy, of course.
It's just so bizarre to me that a 35-year-old coach is like talking about getting into broadcasting when he's still coaching.
But that's bizarre. Because but look, here's the other thing for him.
It just doesn't happen. It's just rare. You
ever hear of John Madden?
Okay, but the guy was his career was way different than Sean McVay's.
He was 40. He didn't go into, but he left because I think it just coaching was too much. He wanted to fly the whole thing. He wasn't going to broadcasting, but the money now is so great.
Right.
And there's and look, and the other thing about it, I said this on the Marchand and Sports Media podcast. There's a plug for it. It's not like you're building an NBA roster, right? Where LeBron gets whatever he makes, 30 million. And then the next guy gets 25, next guy gets 20. That's not how these NFL game crews are built. First off, NBC and ESPN basically only have one. Now ESPN has two. But the other groupings, the first person, the Romos, the Aikmans, they make 10 plus million. Okay. But underneath them, that's number two makes 7 figures. After that, the guys probably don't even make 7 figures. I will say this.
I would be extremely intrigued and excited to hear him. I think he would be excellent as an analyst. You could just anytime you see him interviewed, you mentioned his podcast with Traeger, he would be good. Like, he gets me way more excited than like Sean Payton and who was the other one that was rumored. I mean, I think McVay. I think the fact that he is younger too, he'd do maybe a little bit of a different. He'd have a much different vibe.
And let me say one other thing. The second, I'm kind of looking forward to him getting the job so I can start writing about him leaving the job. So that's the other thing is, so he leaves as a Super Bowl champion, probably gets $10+ million a year, then can wait for the job. If he wants to go back, he can decide if he likes it. If he wants to go back, everybody's going to want him. He can decide when Arch Manning has a team, he can do whoever that next quarterback is, he'll be able to team up and figure out the next spot. And if you look at like the guys who kind of Parcells did that, there's a lot of guys you can keep picking those right spots.
And now, based off of what you just said there, what comes into my mind is then to me, that's an issue for ESPN, because I think what I would assume ESPN wants to do and what they may need to is stabilize the booth. Now, they think they've done that here with Levy and Greasy and Riddick, but they could also blow it up if Al Michaels and Sean McVay become available, or, so if you're ESPN, McVay becomes available, you want him for Monday Night Football, but he's going to go leave to coach in 2 years. Now you need another analyst again. Is that a factor for ESPN?
I mean, I think they really want to get that marquee booth if they do this. I mean, that's what they, and they have a Super Bowl coming up. Yeah, of course. I think you're taking the chance with a coach that he could go back as opposed to a player, an ex-player. They just haven't been able to, and in some cases have, passed on the opportunity to get some of these quarterbacks. And, they really wanted Romo, didn't happen. CBS retained him. Drew Brees, they were in on him, but they didn't want to pay him what he wanted, and he went to NBC. And so when you look at it, it makes sense for them. But you're right. There are some, it's not perfect. But they really have struggled in terms of getting that booth up to snuff. And then they also will have to figure out if they bring in McVay, who's the play-by-play guy. Because the thing that I think that they've missed, and Steve Levy is a great host, very good on hockey. He's okay on football. Does he make McVay better? You got to make sure you have what they keep messing up overall, I would say, is you need the play-by-play guy can really elevate your analyst. And that's something that the Joe Bucks, the Iron Eagles really do well. That is sort of underrated by all these networks when they pick people.
The Aikman one really, when you think about it, is the fascinating one here, I think, because Al's going to leave it. NBC's getting rid of Al. Tirico takes that job. So Al is like Amazon. You say when you're online, I think maybe Monday Night Football is more in play, but it's going to be one of those two things. Now, Aikman, like you had said earlier, Aikman could do Amazon and then like the 425 Fox games, and then this way he still gets playoff games. But if Aikman ever went to Monday Night Football, he's not staying with Fox.
No, that's
then the question in there is, then what does Fox do? They don't have a number one analyst. So the Aikman domino, I think, is a lot more intriguing than the Al domino.
100%. Well, they're linked. I wrote this last week. I mean, the dominoes are linked because let's say Troy just stays at Fox, then Al doesn't really have the analyst that he wants, and he hasn't signed the contract yet. In large part, he said this basically publicly. We had him on last week on our podcast. Is that, and you've had him on. He's he wants that analyst. So if they don't get Aikman, then who's next? Now NBC I think wants Breeze to be in there, and I think he could do some games. I don't know if Al does all the Amazon games as well. Like he might do. There's 16 games counting exhibition. Maybe he picks the best 10. He's not doing the Jacksonville game. I could see that scenario. Let's just try to use scenario as much as we can this whole podcast.
I can easily do it.
They're interlinked. I think it's a fascinating thing. I think McVay is the most. They're all interesting, but I think McVay is the most interesting.
Yeah, it's just weird to me he'd leave coaching. You have anything you want to say about the game broadcast? I mean, I wrote on Monday that the game didn't really lend itself to a lot of great broadcasting. There were no big play. The biggest play of the game came with a face mask on the touchdown that wasn't called. Refs come in, destroy the last 2 minutes. There was no build. There was no signature moment, signature play. So I had a hard time fully. I mean, listen, Al's going to give you a great play-by-play. I thought Collinsworth did a great job getting into the line play in the Aaron Donald and why the Bengals couldn't stop him. Thought that Chris was absurd, saying it was the greatest drive in NFL history after the game when there was penalties all over the place. That was sort of like my assessment on it. What about you?
Yeah, I think overall, very good. Probably an A minus for NBC. I think in a Super Bowl, it's kind of like an umpire. If you're not fully noticed, that's probably a good thing. Right. You don't want to be the story. I thought Al, like I said, excellent. I thought late, not great energy on some of those calls, but he's Al Michaels and get away with it a little bit more. Didn't nail those, but the call that just to me was like the epitome of why Al's so good. Like go back and if you listen to the interception after the 75-yard touchdown, I mean, Al was just all over a turnover and a touchdown in 22 seconds. I mean, just like so perfect. And so good information. NBC with Godelli, they always have a good plan. They come out of break good. I thought the pregame show was pretty good. Gave that one an A minus. I didn't love Collinsworth. I gave him a C plus. I'll tell you why. Number one, the face mask, he got to be. I mean, that was like humongous 75-yard play. And he's like, yeah, he had a face mask. That could have been. I'm not saying definitely. I didn't talk to him about it, so I don't know. But the last Super Bowl he did, Philadelphia, New England. Philadelphia was riding in the streets basically over his commentary about the officiating. He was a little bit maybe gun shy. I also felt like
Aikman would have went nuts there.
Who would have?
Aikman would have went nuts.
Exactly. Romo would have been. He and Hong have been, I thought he needed a little more there. To me, that was a moment that you need to kind of say you can't miss that call. And
here's what
Go ahead.
No. I wonder if I wondered a couple of times if Chris was a little timid because he was a former Bengal and maybe he's trying not to come off either way as either.
Yeah, he's usually not like that, but that's a fair point. I mean, I talked to him about that angle before the game. And he said usually people think he hates the Bengals when he's done the Bengals games. They hadn't done a Bengal game for years and years. And then at the end, the defensive pass interference, the big call on the third down. I would have liked to have heard from Terry McAuley there. I know it's quick, game's going fast, but that's why you have McAuley there. I just need him to tell me that's PI, that's not PI at the end of the game because that was such a big call. And you have Chris saying it, and he's kind of questioning it, but I think that's why you have Terry McAuley. And I think I want him in there real quick. 10 seconds, just say, hey, this is why it's a pass interference. This is why I think it might have been a questionable call. I thought you could have used that, but overall, and also the other last thing, good grade, but could they have gotten out of the game quicker? I mean, they were out of there to get that Olympic number, get those overall Olympic numbers higher. And then we got to talk about, what was it, bobsled, whatever they had on there. I was on ESPN personally, but
as I said on Twitter, what made that hilarious is that they have 475 studio analysts and they couldn't even do a post-game show because they had to go to there's no network that has more studio people than them. And basically Tarico's on the field going, we got to take you to bobsled. They
want to prop up the Olympic number. I mean,
which nobody cares about. Right.
Nobody cares. And I mean, I get it. They want to prop up that Olympic number, but it is interesting. It does tell you where like linear TV is. That was always, I mean, it is the Olympics are going on right now, but usually you want to show in there. And now, and they still went to the Olympics. So I guess you maybe have to do, perhaps I'm wrong with that.
One thing I want to mention, because I totally forgot to write about it in the column and I regretted it. You mentioned Fred Godelli. The production, I want to give just a shout out because I thought, the best moment they had from a production standpoint was when they showed Evan McPherson stayed on the field to watch the halftime show. I thought that was excellent job by NBC catching that. Now,
well, he does a good job with staying on the field. Godelli, I think he once told me something John Madden said to him, before the game, watch the field. And they always seem to like notice little things that they'll bring back, which is kind of, to me, is like where you raise your professionalism another level. You're not where you're really focused and you're intense. And I like that. And then they had a feature that I really enjoyed, which is a little inside TV, but they brought high school kids in, players, and they went through some of the plays that the Bengals and Rams did, so they knew they had the shots. But it worked as a TV element because they also explained certain plays with Chris Sims and Dungy and Harrison and Breeze. And I thought that was good.
I'm going to switch it up here. I want to go to the Manning cast scenario.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's always weird when I tape this podcast and there's breaking news. TMZ is reporting that Aaron Rodgers and Shailene Woodley have called off their engagement. So I don't know if the woke mob got to Shailene and said that those two kids couldn't make it work.
I thought you were going to have something. You had Manning cast. I'm like because when if I need to write something and that's Aaron Rodgers.
It's big news because the woke mob is after Aaron Rodgers. So now anything he does, we need McAfee to interview him now about this.
Isn't that his second engagement that's been broken up?
I think that was he engaged with Danica Patrick. Do you think Aaron Rodgers would get into NFL broadcasting when he's done?
He doesn't strike me that way. I don't think he'd be interesting. I mean, he definitely
he's very media savvy though. I mean, he seems to pay attention to every word the media says.
He does. I think he'd be weird. I don't really see that one.
So I said Manning cast, but here's what. Let me ask this: Turner announced for the NBA All-Star game. Kevin Harlan's going to do the game with Reggie Miller and Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade, by the way, is excellent on their Tuesday studio show. And I like that move because maybe they realize Harlan should be the guy for that job. But they also said so. TNT is going to have that with Harlan and Wade and Miller. And then on TBS, the Inside the NBA crew, Ernie Johnson, Shaq, Chuck, and Kenny are going to do a broadcast there. Does that happen without the Manning cast this year?
It probably didn't hurt. I mean, I can't say for certain. I will say this is so funny you say the Manning cast. Look, Turner and ESPN, and rightfully so. Like none of them want it to be called Manning cast because they've been doing alternative broadcasts forever. Yeah, exactly. I tell them I don't care. It's shorthand. This is the most successful one by far.
Right. And here's the other thing: we learned this with Dazen. I'm going to call what I want. I don't email me. Don't send me. Don't text me.
Oh no. Wait, so because you called the zone
the Manning cast
game, that they should.
It was the zone. Does anyone even know about the zone? What's going on with the zone?
The zone's like
no. Here's what I'm saying.
You're over in the US.
TNT could say whatever they want. What they're doing on Sunday is a Manning cast. If you don't like the word, that's not my problem. It's a Manning cast.
I agree, of course. Yeah, I don't care either.
That's my point. And Dazen is the zone.
Yeah, I'm not sure Peyton likes it when people call the Manning cast. I think that's probably the issue.
Wait, Peyton doesn't like being called the Manning cast?
I think he doesn't mind it being called the Manning cast, but I don't know if he loves the fact that K-Rod, which he has nothing to do with, is being called a Manning cast. That would be my guess. That would be my guess.
Interesting.
Because he's doing, their new deal. He's going to be doing his own other Manning cast for UFC. Not with, just to be clear,
he's not on it.
He's not on it.
But that's what I wanted to bring up. So the announcement came last week that ESPN and Omaha Productions extended the Manning cast for another year, which I don't know why they had to do that now, whatever. Yep. And that Omaha Productions was going to come up with more Manning casts for all these other sports, not involving Peyton and Eli. And to me, that's going to be a problem because they're going to be bad. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the Mannings have kind of raised the bar. And look, do I think ESPN necessarily needs Peyton and, the Mannings to pick out their UFC or golf, extra, alternative broadcasts? They don't. I will say this. The one thing that Peyton can do that Norby Williamson or Stephanie Drewley or Lee Fitting or Jimmy Pitaro, any of the executives at ESPN can't do as well is just get anybody on the phone. Like anybody's going to pick up the phone for Peyton Manning. I mean, the chairman of ESPN probably get basically most people on the phone. I mean, most people want to take a meeting with the chairman of ESPN. Don't get me wrong. But Peyton Manning calls, they're going to listen a little bit more closely. And it has had success. So That said, I don't know if they need to pay him all this money. It's just a way they want to keep the Manning cast going. And look, they're all building these production companies. LeBron's done it. Now Peyton's doing it. Brady's doing it. I mean, these guys are going to make, they might make $1 billion when they sell these things. So they're building humongous companies. Steph Curry has one.
You're more tapped in than anyone. What are you hearing on Brady and broadcasting? Is it something we may see?
I doubt it. I do think most likely will get offers. At least the discussion. I just don't see why he would do it, right? Like, he doesn't need to do it. Like, it's not the iron. Like, we're talking about McVay, and a little, like, again, McVay will probably be there for him in the future, but the number, like, the iron's a little hot right now. He's only 36. He just won a Super Bowl. Most people think he's going to be good. It's very hot now. He goes 4-13 next year. I'm not saying it wouldn't be there for him. It probably would. The iron might not be as hot. Tom Brady has no rush to do anything. So if he's saying that he's not playing because he wants to be with his kids and his wife, then I don't know why he'd want to go every Thursday to do an Amazon game. I don't see that. Maybe something at his home where they're paying him ridiculous money, like Peyton has going on. Maybe, but he's going to be able to make. You see, these guys. The difference is now, though, is they can make ridiculous money if you're Tom Brady. Different class here. Tom Brady, LeBron. They don't need to do the analyst thing, and they still can make ridiculous money with these production companies, these shows, whatever. Everything they can do just with their name, and he's building a business. So to answer your question, I'm not going to rule it out. I can't rule it out totally because the money. The money they're offering at some point, if someone's offering you $35 million to talk about games, you might say, hey, you know what? I'll take my 35 mil.
Here's what I'd like you to do. Educate the people listening and myself as well. But tell the listeners. So you say Brady, you don't think he wants to get into broadcasting at the moment. He was very clear. He retired to be with his family. Why go, have to be on the road once a week? Okay. But does that stop a network from going after him and saying, here's a blank check, here's 20 million, Romo got 17, we'll give you 20. Will networks still pursue him even if we don't know that he definitely wants to do it?
Well, I think the roadmap is made by Peyton. Like, if you look at Peyton's deal, every time they announce it, it's a lot of Omaha Productions, right? And ESPN did a good job, Pitaro and company, of establishing that relationship through Omaha Productions and Detail, which does very well for ESPN, and then the Peyton's Places as well. So they did that. So they have that relationship. So if you're looking at like a place where it makes the most sense, I do think there's a relationship between Bezos and Brady. There's connections there, which these guys can connect it to anybody. But is there a larger deal with the TB12 brand? With it's 199 Productions is his production arm, and then he's doing some games. Like, that's what you probably could see. The issue for Brady, like this off season, is that, again, for Tom Brady, he doesn't need that $30 million in theory would be there next year, $20 million to do the games, 25, whatever it is. He doesn't need to do it this year. If Tom Brady wants to go do it next year, if there's nothing scandalous that happens to him over the next year, it's going to be there for him whenever he wants to do it. But he doesn't have to do it. They have more. Again, the thing that I always think is a misnomer when people talk about this stuff, I hear it all the time. These guys have a lot of money. They don't need money. Like, that is true. But one of the reasons these analysts make so much money is because they always make so much money and they expect to be paid that much money. And so they're not going to do things unless they're getting paid a lot of money. So, like, the idea that money's not a part of it is not saying. So, yeah, they're definitely people reach out to Brady's people, but like CBS isn't going to pay him that big money. I don't think NBC is a fit. I think ESPN could be a fit, which would be great. Brady on ESPN, Peyton on ESPN too. That'd be tremendous. I think Amazon's the one that kind of has so much money and kind of you could see, okay, well, they're going to go give him $1 billion to do, take all this stuff, buy his company, get the production, put him on Thursday nights with Al, and away you go. I don't think it'll happen, but that's the one that I would say makes the most sense to me.
My dream scenario, just for a content standpoint, is
that
it's
always Jimmy about what's good for us.
Exactly.
I want this free agency that we got the chaos because that's good for us.
Exactly. So I want Alan Troy to go to Monday night, Brady to Fox with Joe Buck, and then that's how it all shakes out.
And who's on Amazon?
Who cares? Amazon Thursday night. I'm sorry. No one cares. I mean, it's whatever. Put it whoever you want. Anyone but Drew Brees. Okay, that was mean. I shouldn't have said
you're that down on Drew Brees.
That was a rough game.
He had one rough game.
I don't blame him. NBC never should have given him that assignment. Last thing before we wrap, it's a little odd, but I just want to say it. You know, Dick Vitale's been through hell. It's amazing. Can't catch a break. I wrote, you know, it's crazy that ESPN and CBS never worked anything out to let him call an NCAA tournament game. Doesn't seem like they could do that this year, obviously. So hopefully he bounces back. He's going through a lot of stuff, and I'd love to see him bounce back and like get him on a tournament game, please, in 2023 if he's healthy. Can we do that for the guy? I mean, you know, it's tough here to see what's going on with him.
100%. I mean, Dickie V, kind of like we talked about with Russo and McAfee, and I kind of, again, he's not exactly the same, but when I wrote about McAfee a few years ago, I did relate him when he was doing ESPN, maybe to Vitale. It's just there's such a great energy with Dickie V, right? He just is so enthusiastic for life, and he wants to broadcast till he's 100. I think he's 82 right now, and so I'm not betting against him. I mean, I think he can do it, and obviously everyone's rooting for him. His battle with cancer, and then now he had throat surgery with the famed, I think his name is Dr. Zettles. In Boston, who worked on Michael Kay and on Joe Buck as well. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Could be wrong. But basically, hopefully he can get his voice back, and of course the cancer, which he's done such a tremendous job too in terms of raising money for that cause, especially for children with cancer. And so he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's literally in the Basketball Hall of Fame, but he's a Hall of Famer in terms of energy and the way he goes about life. He's just he's got a passion for him. So, could you see that? Maybe you could. I mean, him and Billy Packer for years always had that, kind of battle going.
Yeah. You just want to see the right thing happen. Like, there's nobody who's ever been a bigger endorser of college basketball than him. Like, let the guy call a tournament game for once.
He has done. I mean, not that this matters, maybe, but he's done.
Yeah, like 1980. Like,
no, but he's done international. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that doesn't count. I'm talking about CBS. In the mix with all the games. He has to do a Final Four, first round in one of those, 12-5 games. Just get him out there. Let him do it, Hopefully the window for that opportunity is not shut and he can do that. Andrew, appreciate you coming on a busy week. Everyone can read Andrew in the New York Post and listen to him on the Marchand and Oran podcast. Did you have a guest this week?
No guest this week. It's just Oran and I.
Anybody for next week lined up? Don't worry, I won't steal them.
We do. You're gonna steal? I don't think so.
I won't steal them.
It's a good guest. It's a more Oran guest. It's the president of NASCAR scheduled.
Okay, so there you go. So you guests on the every Wednesday, the Marchand and Oran podcast. Want to make sure I get the names in the right order.
It's a sports media podcast.
Sports media.
I think you do a little sometimes some O's to like Francesa and Russo. And
I listened to them for 30 years. What do you want?
I just like it. I find it funny. For me, it's funny. But you do. It's like that was so like Mike. It's like the Marchand. Like this is kind of beneath. I have to mention this is kind of beneath Marchand.
Well, I always want to make sure I get your name first. I don't want to say Oran first and cause a big kerfluffle over there at that pod.
Well, because with me probably because my name is
These podcast streets are rough.
We're doing well. John's a great guy, as you.
Yeah, of course.
I
had to flip a coin. Who do I want to ask to come on? You or him? So I went with you this week, and we'll have John on in a few weeks. And when do you have any sort of? It's February 16th. Do you think we know where Al and Troy are by March 1?
I think Troy will go quicker and then the dominoes will fall. So I think Troy could happen relatively soon. I mean, the McVay thing, Peter Schrager was on NFL Network saying it might take a couple of weeks. I'm not sure if that holds some things up where people might want to see what happens with McVay before they fully commit. But I think there's a lot of people kind of hold all the cards. So I don't know. So I guess I would say most likely if McVay goes, I think he ends up at ESPN. That's where I would think he would end up. And then if Troy, and I think Troy probably splits. That's what most likely he does like 10 Amazon games and 10 Fox games. But does that get the money? If you're Troy, do you just do the? To me, it's like just stay with Joe Buck. It seems pretty easy just to stay with Joe Buck and just do those games, make 13, not 17. I don't know. That just seems to me. Again, that's $4 million, a lot of money. But you're going side to side. It's kind of a little half foot in, half foot out for that scenario.
I think you're right there. Yeah, he has his new 8 beer, so he could make the difference in the cash that way with his new beer. So
see that the beer's going to make $4 million.
Well, you never know.
Everyone's selling beer
in Dallas. I could see all those Cowboy fans buying that. I got to go watch First Take with Stephen A. Rewatch First Take with Stephen A.
Watch it.
I'm going to rewatch it.
Will you really rewatch it?
No, I'm kidding. I got work to do. Got to get this pod going here. But I may rewatch one of the clips I posted.
All right, now people are already listening. Now we get a Licata. Is there a Licata too as well?
Yeah. Sal will be on.
We're still calling that Traina Thoughts, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah,
just as
you love saying the Marchand and Orion thing, and you have a segment with a WFAN personality in New York that you call Traina Thoughts.
Well, there wasn't supposed to be a person. So the way it broke down was people higher up on the ladder here came to me and said they want a segment where I do like the Traina Thoughts column. And I said, I don't like talking by myself. I need someone there. So it was established that there'd be a Traina Thoughts segment. And then I decided to put Sal on my own and went a little rogue. So
this one's for Sal. Entercom came to me. They wanted me to put Sal on.
Sal was my idea. He's my friend.
No, I know how you said it. Like they came to me. They wanted this other segment.
Well, because you're asking me why it's called Traina Thoughts, and I'm telling you.
I know, but now you can't change it. It's like a license out. There's already merchandise.
Well, no, because now it's just. I don't like changing. I don't like changing things. I hate.
You like it being called Traina Thoughts. Isn't the whole podcast Traina Thoughts?
Pretty well. This hasn't been Traina Thoughts. I'm getting Marchand thoughts.
Yeah, put my name in there. And Jim Nance is not a regular. That's not every week now.
No, give him a little. He's got golf going on, so we'll take a break from Jim.
Back to back,
and a belly to belly.
Onions to quote Raftery. You're asking people back to back.
Raftery. I got to get Raftery on here in the next, maybe in a month or so before the tournament.
Right, if Nance did it full time, would it be Traina and Nance or Nance and Traina?
Jim and Jim squared. Jim,
Ooh,
play off the Jim thing. Yeah,
right.
There you go.
All right, Jimmy.
All right, take it easy. Appreciate you coming on. Stay safe. Be well.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right, joining me now for our weekly Traina Thoughts segment is Sal Licata from WFAN Radio in New York and SNY TV. Sal, how are you?
Great. Absolutely terrific.
This is the worst time to be in sports media. We got nothing now.
I hate it. I know. There's such a letdown after the Super Bowl.
Got to get to the March Madness, basically, and even that is
what do we got like a few weeks to go. You're right, and it feels so weird because of the pandemic. It's thrown things off, even with baseball. I was saying this last night on the overnight show, like the lead up to what we normally know as sports fans, that clock, that calendar, it completely got altered due to the pandemic, and it still doesn't feel like it's back. And now with the baseball lockout, that's been impacted. And you're right, with March Madness, I used to have that feel for a couple weeks, tournament start, and then the Madness. But even with that, I feel like it's been altered and doesn't feel the same.
Even like the NBA playoffs seem so far away. Like,
when is that? Is that April? End of April,
it's
I guess.
Later than that.
I don't even know when that is.
Like April, May. It's
right.
It's a long ways away.
We get the All-Star break coming up this weekend. Those could be fun, but you're right. This is the vacation time for sports dog people. Take a little vacay.
Exactly. Let's put a bow on the Super Bowl. Let's start with this because I know you're a huge Eminem fan. What do you think of halftime?
Great question. So here's my issue. Number one, you and I, people that are sports fans, are watching for the game, not the halftime show. And I think in years past where I've enjoyed the halftime show, it's been somebody, let's say like Beyonce, that I normally wouldn't have ever seen in concert, and I see her go out there and perform and say, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. So I was really looking forward to this because this is my type of music. However, and the people are going nuts on Twitter. Oh, this is the greatest halftime show ever. I did not see it like that. The fact that Eminem did one song is not enough. So then I got to thinking, okay, well, what did they do wrong? Because it wasn't the performance. It was just that there were too many people. There was no way to make people who are fans of Eminem or Dre and Snoop or Mary J or Kendrick happy because they're all divvying up that time. So that's where they went wrong, trying to be all inclusive and get as many people as they can in there to hit different targets. The performance itself wasn't bad, but as somebody who loves that music, I wanted more and I didn't get it because they split it up between 18 people.
Right. I've always said, I never really like I can watch a halftime show and be like, okay, that was good, but I never get blown away, or I'm never really satisfied by any halftime show, because what they do with all, no matter who's the performer, whether you like the performer or not, they give you like 30 seconds of a song. Like I will say, like Eminem went long on Lose Yourself, which,
right.
Now you're saying he only did one song. I think I'd rather give me one whole song than like 3 songs, 30 seconds each. I hate the chopping up of it.
That's fair. But then think about this. And again, I get why they had all the, Kendrick Lamar is going to reach the younger audience, and Dre and Snoop or the older audience. I liked Mary J. I thought she did well. It wasn't the knock on the performance, but did they need 50 Cent? And I'm fine with 50 Cent, but like, that's the surprise. On top of everybody else, you're throwing in 50 Cent, you're taking away time. So, and they didn't do any collaborations. There's a lot of songs that they could have done that with. So I get surface wise and people who are like, oh yeah, I like that music. I remember those hit songs. For me, because I liked them so much, I needed deeper stuff. I needed more stuff. So I realized that there's no way that I would have been satisfied with, that many people trying to get in their songs at once.
You hit on 2 really interesting points there. The first is, I enjoyed 50 Cent because I love that song. I like 50 Cent's music. So like I that was fine. I mean, I think calling him like a surprise, like like you said, when we already know it's going to be Eminem and Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre and Mary J. Blige, like you don't need a surprise.
There's so many people there.
And I will say this. Well, I think you made an excellent point about this. I'd almost rather, like, I'm going to contradict myself here and say, like, I prefer longer versions or a full song and then snippets. Having said that, I would have liked to have seen more collaboration. You had Dre and Snoop, obviously, but I would have liked to have seen Mary J sing with Eminem, or Mary, like I would have liked to have seen them all together, do something. Like they're all there, they're all together. Give me something different. Give me something special. Plus, my all-time favorite Mary J. Blige song is Real Love, and she didn't do it. So that pissed me off.
Well, that's another one. I mean, and she did 2 songs and they were great, but Real Love is, which I think plays to the younger audience, right? She's trying to play some of the newer stuff as opposed to Real Love. I don't know, but it was fine performance-wise. I hope they get back to where it's either 1 or 2 artists. I think that makes it better. Maybe
it's because I get older and more miserable and more miserable. But I felt like for some reason this Super Bowl, I felt like more than ever, it's just not for the football fan. It's just not. The way Odell Beckham goes down, they don't show you a replay. They go right to commercial. Joe Burrow goes down. They don't show you a replay. They go to commercial. I understand the commercials are a big part of this, but you're going to make everyone, the quarterback of the Bengals, Joe Burrow, one of the top players in the league, one of the guys, one of the faces of the league now, goes down clutching his knee, and you don't show a replay and you go to commercial. I hate the long halftime. I hate everything about that game.
The halftime felt like it was longer than the actual first half. It went on forever. You're right. It's not. And that's why we talk about the best weekend really is championship weekend, where the Super Bowl, which is the biggest game of the year, it feels like an exhibition. It drives me up a wall.
I wrote this in Traina Thoughts on Monday. At halftime comes commercial, fine. Now they go to studio with Tirico and Dungy. They say, okay, stay tuned for the halftime show, more commercials. They come back, they show Maria Taylor on the field going, welcome back to Super Bowl, whatever. Stay tuned for the halftime show. More commercials. Then it's
squeezing
absurd.
In every cent that they could get. I get that the commercials are expensive and they want to make the most of it, but it's so obvious as a viewer what they're trying to do.
And poor NBC basically making Al do a hostage video and announce every celebrity who's there. Can you explain to me why I need to know Charlize Theron is at the game when there's a play goal? Like, I don't understand.
We don't, but the people who are there for the event, the Super Bowl, as they're getting their second round of food or putting their chips in a dip. Oh, who's there? Oh, is that Ben and J-Lo or whatever? I don't mind the quick, sight of it, but you're right. They broadcast
relentless.
They broadcast for the average fan, the casual fan, not the diehard fans.
It was relentless on Sunday. And then the other thing was I felt bad because I watch the game by myself because I have to listen to every word of the broadcast because I have to write about it. I wrote something that night. I had to write something next morning. So I can't be at a party with people talking and me missing things and rewinding and this and that. And I don't care about commercials. I've never will for anything. I don't care about them. I don't watch commercials. They come on. I change the channel. I go to my phone. Right. I don't pay attention. And I made 23 prop bets on Sunday.
Jesus.
So when the commercials would come on, I'm checking my prop bets. I'm going to my phone because people are texting you all throughout the game. And I'm not paying attention to the television. And then I got all these tweets from people saying, like, why didn't I comment on the Sopranos commercial? I didn't see it when it first came on. I saw it on Twitter because I wasn't paying attention to the television.
I did not, for the record, I did not see that one live either. And you're right. Like, when am I supposed to go to the bathroom? When am I supposed to get food? When am I supposed to entertain the guest? I'm not doing it during the game. Like, I want to watch the game, so I'm not watching the commercials. I'm not locked into that either.
My thing is, okay, again, this goes back to me just being a miserable person. But okay, so there was AJ and Meadow were in the commercial. They hugged. Like, what am I getting excited about? Everyone's like, "Oh, Sopranos reunion!" Like, okay, they're selling a car. If they weren't selling a car, maybe I'd be more into it. They want me to buy some stupid car.
So you watched? You ended up watching it.
I saw the commercial on Twitter. I watched it.
Me too.
I know there was and then there was a Larry David commercial.
That one I happened to catch live, and I thought it was pretty good. But the Sopranos one I didn't. I went back and watched it. Like, okay, as a diehard Sopranos fan, yeah, it's cool to hear the music and to see her driving along. But like, nothing happened. Literally, nothing happened. She was driving the car. I got all these tweets and texts from people like, what, the Sopranos commercial, Larry David commercial. I'm like, I don't know what to tell. Like, I didn't see it, and I don't like. It's a commercial. Like, I don't know. Like, there was a commercial about a car, and then Meadow and AJ hugged. I mean, what do you want from me? Yeah.
How'd you do betting wise?
Not good. I had. This is where, and this is why I told you I'm a bad bettor. I like the Bengals all week. My general practice is if I like a team just to win, I would bet the game with the line, and especially if it's whatever it may be, even if it is 1.5, I'm like, why wouldn't I just take the 1.5? The difference in the money line doesn't make any sense. So I usually would take the points and then the money line. And for some reason, I just was like, in my mind, I'm like, if the Rams win, they're going to blow them out. I'll just take the Bengals money line. So I had the Bengals money line. I didn't even get the chance to win with the point spread. I hit the Stafford interception bet. But I lost the over total field goals 3.5, which at the end I'm thinking, just get me in field goal range. I would have won that, and then hopefully I had the chance of the Bengals, but that's why I lost. With
I am still stunned beyond belief that the Bengals did not get a field goal, even attempt on that last drive. Stunned. You know, it's crazy when you think about it. The Chiefs took 13 seconds to do what they had to do.
Right.
The Bengals had they had like 1:20. They had timeouts. And, you know, we talk about this you and I talk about this all the time. You and I always say, I say this all the time. People want to say so-and-so is a great coach for whatever they do in the regular season and the players love them. And I want a coach who knows how to run a 2-minute offense more than anything. That is more important than any single job any coach can do. Those play calls from the Bengals were absurd.
The 3rd and 1, handing it off inside to Pirine, that one where my jaw dropped. Now, I get because he had the timeouts, he's thinking, let's just hand it off here. Nobody's going to think we're going to run the football, get the first down, and reset. And I was thinking, you got to keep the ball in Burrow's hands. Forget the field goal right now. There's plenty of time left. It's 3rd and 1. You got 2 plays. Run a real friggin' play. Go for it. Like, what are you doing? And
even before that, Burrow threw like a bomb out of bounds. Like, your mindset in that situation, especially when you have that beast of a kicker, your entire mindset should just be, we need to get to the 35-yard line. That's it. Right. Nothing else. There was like no sense of urgency. It was very bizarre that last drive.
And the abrupt ending, because you're right. Like, we've gotten so used to seeing the team with the ball last, at the very least, get the field goal attempt. And you just assume that it was going to come down to that. They started to move it a little bit, and then, okay, 3rd and 1, you're figuring, here they go. And then they don't. They get stuffed there. Then it's like, uh-oh, 4th and 1. And then, boom, stuff. That's it. Game over. And there was the abrupt ending to it, kind of. You don't. How often have we seen games end with the defense making the big play?
I wrote in Traina Thoughts on Monday for a 23-20 game that was competitive and close throughout. It was not a good game. There were no big plays. The biggest play of the game, there was a face mask that should have been a penalty that shouldn't have counted. And then the last drive, the Rams drive, which, you think, okay, this is, you got this epic drive, was marred by the refs and the penalties, as always, again. And the Saints the Bengals just laid a big fart on their last drive. So it took so much steam out of whether it was a great game and and I don't know. That's how I felt.
They were playing, which I kind of like, the ball control offense, run the clock down. That's why the first half I felt moved so quickly. The Bengals didn't do anything to lose the game, and yet they lost. Stafford throws 2 picks, the only 2 turnovers in the game. Cincinnati runs the football better than the Rams do, and yet the Bengals, because it comes down to a couple of key plays, whether it's that BS holding call on 3rd and goal from the 8 that helped the Rams eventually get the touchdown in, whether it's the 3rd and 1, the 4th and 1, or even, Cooper Kupp running the football on their own 30. The Rams are going for it on their own 30 on 4th and 1. If you make a stop, you win the Super Bowl, and they didn't do it. So, the Bengals had at least 2 or 3 plays that if they just made those plays, they would have won the game, and they didn't, and that's why the Rams are Super Bowl champions.
And I also thought this was a phenomenal moment from Al Michaels calling the game. Huge play that don't hear enough people talking about. The Bengals late, the drive before the Rams took the lead on a 3rd down, just a flat out drop by T. Higgins. And as soon as he dropped it, that was his first drop the entire season.
Boyd, was it Higgins, or I thought it was Boyd?
Boyd.
Yeah, okay,
it was Boyd. You're right. Boyd.
Which I could not believe. First drop of the year.
If he catches that, the Bengals, I think, they're at least going to get a field goal on that drive. You would, that was a huge play too, and he knew it. How I couldn't believe that first drop of the year. A wide receiver's first drop is in the postseason like that. On a play that probably changes the game.
Right, if he makes it, and he knew he was beating himself up for it. The game. I think it's better than. It's hard to say it was exciting or a thrilling game, but it was at least competitive and close, which kept our interest through the end. But you're right. There was definitely something lacking where there wasn't excitement. There wasn't big plays in the game at all. It was just kind of a normal football game that was playing out.
And here's what else gets frustrating. And you hit on it right at the top when you said everyone was saying that was the greatest halftime show. There's so much. Cris Collinsworth, after the game, says greatest drive in NFL history for the Rams. The refs destroyed that drive. And so that can't be the greatest drive in NFL. And Dan Orlovsky on ESPN, Matt Stafford had the greatest postseason run in NFL history. What?
Oh God.
What
and that's the other thing that's the other thing that's nauseating. So Matthew Stafford, who's been an average to good quarterback the majority of his career, now because he backs in maybe a little strong, but now because he wins a Super Bowl with the Rams and they were lucky to do so. Hall of Famer. Oh, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, get the hell out of here with this stuff. Right. The overreaction. Matthew Stafford's the same guy he was before he played that game on Sunday and after they won that game on Sunday. He is the same guy. Just because his team won the Super Bowl does not mean Matthew Stafford all of a sudden goes from good, average quarterback to Hall of Famer. It's ridiculous.
I couldn't agree more. And 2 things on Matt Stafford. One, people want to cite these numbers, 8th in passing or whatever. He has numbers because every year his teams were 3-13 and out of games by halftime, and he had to throw every down. That's why he has those numbers. And number 2, and this isn't a Matt Stafford thing, but if you want to have the Hall of Fame and have average players like Matt Stafford and Eli in it, that's fine. Then we need a real Hall of Fame. Matt Stafford and Eli Manning and Matt Ryan, no offense, I know you're a Falcons fan.
Yeah.
Should not be in the same building as Joe Montana, Tom Brady, John Elway, and Peyton Manning. It's absurd that those 2 groups, you have Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, and whoever, Aikman,
Marino, Elway, right? Yeah.
Elway,
Bradshaw.
Peyton, and then Eli Manning, Matt Stafford, and Matt Ryan. What are we doing?
See, that I was coming up with this, the quarterback scale: average, good, great, Hall of Fame.
Right.
And the Hall of Fame should be, it's not a knock saying, and I love Matt Ryan. And according to some of the people that they want to put in, like Matt Ryan is better than Matthew Stafford all day. Or even if you use the argument, Joe Flacco versus Matt Ryan, just because Joe Flacco won the Super Bowl does not mean he's even close to the quarterback that Matt Ryan has been throughout his career. But you're right. How can you put Matthew Stafford in the same breath as Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers, whatever? They're not. It's not a knock on him, but the Hall of Fame should be for the elite of the elite. You could even be a great quarterback. You may not be Hall of Fame quarterback. And to me, Stafford's not even great. He's good at best.
Well, that's if you want to say Matt Stafford's great, Matt Ryan's great, Eli's great, like that's all fine. But the Hall of Fame should be for above great.
Right.
It should be for the people who are above great. And it's not like even who got in. Who's the guy? Bryant Young of the Niners got into the Hall of Fame last week. Bryant Young.
Yeah, I don't even pay attention to the Football Hall of Fame, but the talk with the Super Bowls, and that's how we judge people now. Well, he didn't win a Super Bowl, so he's crap. Or he did win a Super Bowl. Well, now he's a hero. I mean, come on, man. Each one is different how they do it. Well, Odell Beckham Jr., Super Bowl champion. Yeah, but watch the way that it happened. His career has been a disappointment. I don't care that he won a Super Bowl.
Right, 100%. All right, let's change topics to something way more interesting than the Super Bowl. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Vince wants him to wrestle a match at WrestleMania. Now, normally I say I don't love watching the old like Hogan and Flair. Like it's kind of sad when they try to wrestle when they're old. But Stone Cold has been the one guy who's nobody in wrestling ever walks away. Stone Cold has done it. He hasn't been in a ring in like 15 years probably. You want to see it or you don't care?
I don't really care. I'm not, remember, we always talk about this. I'm from like 85, 86 to 92. Now I'm familiar with The Rock and Austin and the Attitude Era and all that, but I wasn't like 100% into it. I think if I knew that he was going to be there, I'd probably be more inclined to watch it than I would normally. So I'd be intrigued. I don't know how, like, is he physically able to?
He always said he wasn't able to because of his neck, but I guess,
And weren't people just ripping? Now, I didn't watch it, but I heard people were ripping Shane McMahon for being there at the Royal Rumble. So it's like, oh, we don't want these old people. I know that Austin is a different level, but aren't they going back to the same old bag? Like, what is it going to be? Hogan versus Austin? I mean, what are they doing here going into the old guys? Or The Undertaker continuing to bring him out where he looks shot? Since
you brought up Shane, I'm going to ignore what you just said and just switch gears because that's actually a great story. How about this? So Shane, did you follow this? So apparently Shane McMahon was one of like the producers of the Royal Rumble match and one of the backstage people who worked on putting together the Royal Rumble match. And then the Royal Rumble match was awful, got vicious backlash. And then Vince the next day fires his son and Shane's out of the W. Is there anyone else who would fire their son besides Vince McMahon?
That is tremendous. I did not know all that. I just read some of the stuff there, but yeah, they've had such a bizarre relationship.
Yeah. And then last week, AEW kept promoting. They're going to have a big surprise, and people thought it would be Shane McMahon. Can you imagine Shane McMahon turns up on AEW wrestling? That would
make me watch. Now, you talked about that, so real quick, let me just follow up with you. What is up with the Cody Rhodes thing?
He left AEW, and he's going to go to WWE, apparently. It's pretty.
But I don't understand that. Wasn't he AEW, period?
That's what I thought. But Tony Khan owns the company, so...
why would he? Why is he when everybody else seems to be leaving WWE to go to AEW? Why is he doing the opposite?
Have you ever heard of a thing called money?
So that's what it is. Good for him.
What is everything? Everything is money. Money. There was such a big part. Look, again, I don't know the inner work. I don't watch AEW, but just from knowing a little bit about it. Right, but it's a startup company. I'm sure he got shit money for many of those years, and now he wants to cash it out.
Oh, well, good for him. And I'll be curious to see his return to the WWE if that happens.
Last thing, do you watch Euphoria on HBO?
No. Should I?
Oh, I was going to ask you that question.
I do not.
I thought you did, and I was going to ask you if I should, but I feel like given the buzz I constantly see, I need to be watching it.
What is it about? I never even heard of it.
I don't know. High school kids doing drugs is what I think.
No, thank you. I think I'll pass on that.
All right.
I think I got to...
I think I gotta check it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, you let me know, and then I'll see.
Shelby, let me ask Shelby, my producer. Do you watch it? Either say yes or give me like or message me on like Slack or Zoom if you're listening. Shelby does not watch it. All right. I need to get some info on Euphoria. All right. Sal, appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next week about God knows what. Since there's nothing going on.
I'm sure we'll figure something out. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy. Thanks. All right, that wraps it up for this week's episode of the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast. My thanks to Andrew Marchand and Sal Licata. If you missed any recent episodes of the SI Media Podcast, go into the archives and check them out. Boomer Esiason, CBS Sports, was on last week. Brian Curtis of The Ringer 2 weeks ago. And then 3 weeks ago, Roman Reigns, Jim Nance, Joe Buck, all right here. If you missed any of those, they're in the archives. Give them a listen. Subscribe to the podcast if you're not a subscriber. And if you could leave a review on Apple, that will help. All right. That wraps it up. We'll see you next week right here on the SI Media Podcast. Stay safe and take care.